Hello, everybody, and thank you for joining for today's Digital Water Expert session, Tales from the Trenches, Lessons Learned and Best Practices for Lead Service Line Replacements. My name is Jay Nelson, and I'm the marketing lead here at Trinnex. I'd like to start us all today by covering a few key housekeeping items. Today will be about a 45-minute to an hour-long session. It is being recorded, and you will all, whoever signed up for this session today, will get a copy of the recording sent to you directly following our presentation today. As we go through the presentation, I encourage everybody in the audience with us today to submit your questions to today's panelists, Alex Torres and Aaron Engelhardt. We love to understand where you in the audience are in your digital water journey. And this is a big reason why we host these digital water expert sessions. We want to build community through providing practical viewpoints, innovation tips, and also give you a chance to get your questions answered. So in order to do so, I would like to please request that all attendees today submit your questions using the Q&A panel at the bottom of your screen to ask your questions directly to our speakers today. This will help us stay organized so that we can track everybody's questions coming in. Now, we may not get to all of these questions live, but please go ahead, ask away, and we will do our best to respond to each question personally. If we don't get to it today, we will also make an effort to reach out individually to folks who have questions that went unanswered after today's presentation. So first of all, I thank you everybody for joining us today, and thank you for our speakers for presenting. All right, let's get started. I'll kick us off by first covering our agenda. I'll give us a brief overview, everybody in the audience, of who Trinnex is, and then I'll intro our speakers so you can learn from who we'll be hearing from today. After that, Alex from HomeServe will take us through some really interesting tales from the trenches and go through some of his experiences and even just getting a couple sneak previews. It's pretty interesting stuff, so I'm looking forward to that part of the presentation from Alex from HomeServe today. And then after that, Aaron from Trinnex, he'll share his expertise on some tools that can help with the planning and execution of lead service line replacements, which is a big topic for all of us in the water industry these days. So let's keep going. First, now some of you in the audience may be familiar with the Trinnex team, but in case this is the first time you've joined us for one of our sessions, I'd like to share a little bit about who we are. So Trinnex helps infrastructure leaders advance their digital journey through proven processes, software tools, and consulting partnership. Our team has decades of water industry domain knowledge, data science expertise, and an unmatched commitment to technical software excellence. Our team consists of digital water industry leaders with a proven history of bringing products to the market that our clients love. And ultimately, this positions us uniquely to deliver software that's designed by water experts for water experts like yourselves who are in the audience with us today. So there's a brief summary around who Trinnex is. You can always go to trinnex.io, our website, to learn more about us. And finally, for today, I'd like to introduce our speakers for this digital water expert session. First, we have Alejandro, also known as Alex Torres. Thank you for joining us today, Alex. Really appreciate it. And also Aaron Engelhardt from Trinnex. So Alex Torres serves as a senior operations manager of contractor management at HomeServe, overseeing network contractors and lead and galvanized service line replacements. In this role, Alex works with contractors and utilities across the country to provide safe, cost-effective removal of potentially harmful service lines in our infrastructure. It's really important work. Thank you, Alex. Alex spent over 20 years working in the industry with contractors and utilities, driving safety, cost, and quality. And before joining HomeServe, Alex spent time with PSE&G Utility, New Jersey, and Patterson Public Schools managing contractors and direct workforce safety, cost, and compliance. So a great depth of experience in the topics that we'll be covering today. So again, thank you for joining us, Alex.
Thank you.
I also have with me today Aaron Engelhart. Aaron is a product management specialist here at Trinnex. We, of course, are a technology company focused on providing software solutions for water utilities. Aaron works closely with these utilities, subject matter experts, and the software development team to ensure Trinnex's software offerings meet customer and market needs. And Aaron does a great job of that, I will say. Prior to working at Trinnex, Aaron spent several years working as a civil engineer and is a licensed professional engineer. He has a Bachelor and Master of Science in Civil Engineering from The Ohio State University. Thank you for joining us today, Aaron. With that, Alex, I will hand it over to you to kick us off with some tales from the trenches.
Thanks, Jay. I would like to thank everyone here for taking time out of your day to spend some time with us today, go over a little bit about my experience in the field. I'm going to be going over some lead stuff, quality, compliance, and some tools too. So we can go over to the next slide, Aaron. So who is HomeServe? A lot of people are always asking me, who is HomeServe? I even asked that myself when I first started out. HomeServe is a utility provider. I'm going to go through a utility partner that ties in with partners as far as utilities, repairs. We're going to have a contractor video. It's a great video to see some of our contractors in action in different types of atmosphere. It's going to be interior work, exterior work. And why is it important to have the right contractor and the right equipment, right? We want these jobs done in a timely manner, safe, compliant manner. So we're going to go over that. And obviously, when we go on the ground, there's going to be unforeseen obstacles. So we're going to review a little bit of unforeseen obstacles. I have some pictures, and we'll go into a little topics about that. And are you prepared? Are you ready for what's coming up with the lead lines? And then we'll wrap it up, and then I'll hand it over to Aaron. So a little about HomeServe. We service about 4.6 million residential customers. We have 1,300 utility partnerships. What I like about HomeServe is we're in someone's home every 54 seconds. So when it comes to dealing with customers and being compliant, HomeServe knows that side of the business. We are very compliant. We are customer based. As you can see, we're 4.8 out of 5 stars. And these 4.8 out of 5 stars are even when we don't cover a customer for stuff that's not even covered. So this includes our 1 stars for people not, saying that we're not covering our stuff. So this shows how we put our customer first, and the satisfaction of the customer is at the heart of everything we do. Another thing in our industry, we are A+ rated with the Better Business Bureau. That is a very tough item to get in our industry, especially when we have residential customers and claims. On our right here, you'll see a bunch of our partners. We take pride in our partnership with all these partners, and our #1 goal is with our customers. So I'm gonna go over a little video here. Aaron's gonna play this video for us. This is our field workers going into the field. Thank you, Aaron. For that video, every time I watch it, I jump every time that air shoots out of the ground like that. It's a little part of what HomeServe does in everyday processes with our customers. So a little bit I'm going to go over is contractor and equipment considerations. When you have contractors going into people's homes with lead line and galvanized now, you got to make sure everyone is background checked, drug screened. They're going into your customers' homes with valuables, safekeepings, family history. So you want to make sure that you have the right contractor entering that home. Most of the times, utilities are working outside from curb to the main. When you're replacing a lead line, you're going into people's homes. You're going into their property. So you want to make sure that everyone is cleared, everyone is on the up and up when they're entering your customer's home. Because the last thing you want is a problem when you're going into a customer's home. And quality of work. Have you seen their work before? Have they provided references? In your RFP, do you have specs as far as their quality or anything regarding their style of work? With workforce, are they able to do all these digs in the timely manner? Are they keeping up with the workforce? Right now, there's a tough time with workforce. A lot of people are not getting in the field. And with workforce, the average license holder in the US is 55 years old. So that tells you a lot of people are really not getting into the field. So you want to make sure that contractor has the right amount of workforce for you and your projects. And what about their tenure? Are they a new company that just established? Do they have reputable equipment? Do they have reputable people working for them? You want someone that's established and provides excellent work. And safety. HomeServe is very big on safety protocols. You want to make sure that they're following, make sure that they have shoring, make sure that they have coning, blocking off areas. So all those safety things play a big role. The last you want is someone walking out of their house to see what they're doing and fall into a hole. So you want to make sure that that workforce informs the customer, follows safety, barricades, anything possible to make sure that they're providing a safe environment in your area. Equipment. You want someone with state-of-the-art equipment. You don't want someone that has equipment constantly breaking down. You don't want someone saying that they're going to show up on site and now they can't because their equipment breaks, and now you have an upset customer taking time off from their job in order to get this lead line replaced. So you want to make sure that they have state-of-the-art equipment and equipment that's right for the job. Pulling capability. Sometimes you are able to pull a line. So depending on your area, you might be able to pull lines. So you want to ask that contractor or include that in your RFP if they have pulling capabilities. Owning your own excavation equipment is a huge savings to you as a utility partner. You don't want someone out going renting equipment for your projects. You want someone that either leases or owns their equipment. The value of them owning and leasing the equipment is going to be a big savings as far as the actual job. Again, safety equipment and signage. You cannot ever have enough of safety equipment and signage on a job site. I'm a big believer in that. I try to duplicate safety. You always got to have a second measure to duplicate safety. So performance, our HomeServe performance, we keep our contractors on a strict scorecard. They get this every month, and I actually go over them with this every month. Even though we do a quarterly update, I do it every month. So this way there is no slack. We use dispatch application to see when they're arriving on the job. It also notifies the customer and communication of them arriving on job completed, and they also receive a survey. This is where we know if the customer is happy also with the contractor, besides going out in the field when, myself covers 60,000 jobs a year. I can't be on every job. So this is where we get feedback from the customer if one of our contractors does make a mistake or they want to provide awesome feedback. This also goes over cost, quality. So our cost, we manage their average job cost to make sure they're in line with their rate card that they agreed upon. So these contractors with us are vetted. their cost and their quality and compliance are all checked before they do any work for us. So it's very important when you bring in a contractor that you ensure that they're going to follow your cost schedule, the compliance part of it, and also the number one thing is safety and keeping your customers happy. So a little bit of unseen for obstacles here. This was in Union City, New Jersey, on the left here. One of our contractors started digging for service here, and there was an old iron railway from an old railway car that was exposed. So this was not known. We didn't find this out. So our contractor actually had to torch this rail section out. Not only did he had to torch the rail section out, we found bluestone next to the rail, which is one of the hardest items to remove too. So we had to get the bluestone curbing and the pavers out of there, the old cobblestone pavers, in order to access this water line. So this is a great opportunity if you have someone in your DPW or anyone with years of experience in your field to ask them about the infrastructure underneath your areas. This plays a big role. This can cost a lot more money if you run into obstacles constantly on streets. So you want to make sure when you put in your RFP or even pre-bid that you allow the contractors to know the unforeseen circumstances. So this way they have the right tools and efficiency to make this happen. The picture to the right, the third one to the right, this contractor was pulling this line and specifically asked the customer if they've ever had a repair done on a line. And the customer said no. Unfortunately, the customer did have a repair and remembered after the fact, and the line actually bunched up, and the contractor was not able to pull this line. So he actually had to dig to remove this line. So you might know an unforeseen circumstance. You might be told wrong by a customer or by someone. So you don't know what you really run into in the field until you get there. So having the right contractor to go out and figure out a next solution is the right thing. So this contractor was able to dig where the bunch was and was able to pull from that location all in one day. So having the right tools, having the right second option when you run into a jam is key. As you can see on the right, that's the repair that was done in another location where a contractor put in a blue plastic fitting and just put some hose clamps on. That's not usually a approved fix. So when you're pulling, you don't know what obstacles you really have, or you can even get through to that section. So this contractor on the right actually had to dig up the whole line in order to get that unforeseen object out. Proper equipment. I can't stress enough about proper and maintaining equipment. On the left top there, that's your pulling cable. On the middle here, you have your air hammer. Some people call it a bullet. This vibrates and hammers into the ground. This actually works very well when you have soft and certain grounds. If you have a rocky environment, this thing can skip and can hit other utilities. So you have to make sure that you have the right and proper equipment and you're using the right proper equipment for the application. Right next to that is a pipe puller. This can be mounted on an excavator, and they also make other items like this that you just can put in the ground. So this is a great tool for pulling the cable if you need to pull the cable versus digging or any other aspect of the actual equipment. On the bottom left, the two pictures here is a horizontal driller. So this will actually drill and bore through the ground. The actual controller can control where that horizontal driller is going. This is another option where if you have the right material and ground, that you can save from restoration from customers' projects. On the bottom right is an example of a puller not attached to a excavator. That's another option you can also do. So these are most options that you can do besides digging. Once again, it's depending on exactly where you are as far as bedrock and things like that. My number one thing is restoration. Customers want their property put back in a timely manner and a very clean manner. and I don't blame them, especially when people take very good care of their property. So you got to make sure that restoration is a key item with your contractors, and communication about restoration is another key item. As you see on the left here, he's using a power broom to clean the street, and eventually they will hose down the road too to make sure that everything's cleaned up and there's nothing left on the road and the customer's property is almost left better than it was actually done when it was dug. I've seen numerous complaints come of restoration, and when you get involved in water service lines, it can get messy, especially when there's leaks involved, very muddy dirt. Depth can be an issue, bedrock. So customers really care about restorative service and restoration. Those are the two things that customers really care about. So I take pride in making sure my contractors provide awesome restoration. As you can see in the middle picture, that's the hole to the right. We try to make it look like we're almost not there. Obviously, the ground's going to settle, so communication comes apart with the customer, letting them know that you will have to come back for grass seed, or depending on the restoration, once the ground settles. And not only including restoration for grass and stuff like that, the communication has to start before you actually do the job. So you got to let the customer know before, during the job, and after. Customers take bits and pieces sometimes. So if you really rely on yourself to provide 3 times the same information to the customer, most likely I guarantee that that customer will remember exactly what you said. So here's another one. Concrete is another big topic that I have. Customers get a little upset sometimes if contractors are not explaining correctly. You cannot put concrete back the same day after doing a job. The ground needs to settle properly. Even though if you compacted every 12 inches, 6 inches, the ground would still settle. So we usually go back within 3 months to do concrete restoration. So sometimes RFPs will include the concrete restoration, or you might even have a concrete contractor come back and do the concrete. So my suggestion is the communication plays another big role here in concrete, asphalt. You want to make sure that you provide clean and good service, because you don't want to come back in a year to pull up concrete because it's settled. And with asphalt, same thing. You just can't put asphalt down and expect it not to settle. It's going to settle. So, well, let's say you need to wait a little while. You can always cold patch this way to restore the people's driveway, and then come back with hot patch once it's time to restore the driveway once it settles. Keeping the area clean is another big area. I don't want to see like 30 piles all over the neighbor's lawn. You want to kind of keep it in the same area. If you have to, you can put plywood down on top, so this way when you put the dirt in, you're not damaging any other areas. As you can see in the photo here on the left, the contractor put the material on the right, and then the bottom picture there, you can see after it was restored. This area is a very sandy area, so there's not much rocks here. So this was a hand dug job, but it's very, very important to maintain a clean work environment as well with your contractors. Here's another concrete picture just showing restoration. Not only the concrete, but the topsoil there spread out and done correctly. So obviously, we waited some time here to do this concrete, and then eventually came back and put some topsoil and lay seed and some hay down for the customer. This is where you got to be very careful as far as entrances to customers' homes. You want to make sure that they have access to their entrance. If not, if they have a secondary entrance. So this customer here had a secondary entrance. So we actually made the area with gravel just in case as emergency exit, but told the customer to please use the other entrance until we were able to get that concrete down. And clean work with the concrete. You want to make sure that they're not using bad concrete. You want to make sure that they're getting good, valuable concrete delivered from their nearest concrete plant. So are you prepared? I ask this a lot to a lot of different people, even contractors. Do you know exactly how many lead or galvanized services you have? That's the #1 key to learn and to get that done. If you don't know, what you have and what you don't have can be a big obstacle. So biggest thing is communication with customers, contractors, and use your resources. If you're a partner with HomeServe, there might be a time where we might have information of that customer if they have certain types of materials. So that's a key item to keep. Your obstacles, like we explained, railroad tracks, you can have all kinds of certain underground electric, you can have fiber in the ground that was mismarked. So if you know these items from their locations to them, it's great to have somebody on site to allow the contractor to know what's going on. And do you have a centralized location for the contractor? Do you have something set up where they can store bulk clean gravel, bulk material, their vehicles? That will save a lot of cost and time for your contractors. A lot of contractors use dead end streets and stuff like that. I'm all for it, but with communication to the neighborhood, you want to let the neighborhood know that you are going to be storing material on their block or whatever for set projects. Centralized locations also save time on bulk deliveries. You don't have a dump truck coming every day from the plant delivering bulk material, or you can ask for a large amount of bulk material, and then you can have a mason dump or something smaller of the contractor delivering to the job site. Also, their equipment. You don't want them lugging their trailers around, moving that stuff around, especially in tighter areas where you worry about them hitting vehicles. And also with location, do you have that location properly in line with city officials, that you're closing the street down? Are you properly letting the citizens know that they cannot park there? So the last thing you want to do is get a customer's car towed away in order to do some work. So you want to make sure that those obstacles and locations are clear. And proper communications, like I said, this is the number one thing I would say is communication. Do you have the proper communication to the customer? What's going to be done? How long is it going to take? These are all questions they're going to ask. How's my yard look when it's going to get done? So make sure that we have the proper communications, not only from the partner, but also your contractor. What about cost? Do you know what the average cost is to do a lead line? Do you know what contractors' average cost is in your market? Do you know how much roughly will you be receiving federal funding? So that's a good item to know, so you know how to disperse your cost in order to get your project completed. And contractors, are you really working with reliable contractors that can handle the workload? Do they have the equipment? Do they have the personnel? Do they have the expertise in this field? You just don't want to go out to bid and hopefully you get the lowest bidder, and then you run into a major problem. So you want to make sure in your RFP that you're including that someone has expertise and has been doing this for some time and has some proven results. So being prepared is a lot. This is your number one task as any utility or contractor, to make sure that you have everything and all your ducks in a row. All right. I'm going to hand this over to Jay, and I want to thank everybody here for their time. And Jay, all yours.
Great. Thank you, Alex. Really interesting to see some of those stories from the field there. And we really appreciate you joining us today and sharing what you've seen and some of the lessons that you've learned, especially around being prepared. That's very useful information. So thanks for sharing. Next up, we've got Aaron Engelhardt, product management specialist here at Trinnex, who's going to talk through some best practices and tools to help in this lead service line replacement journey. So Aaron, all yours, over to you.
Awesome. Thank you, Jay. And thanks, Alex. I think that what you just went over really shows the depth and breadth of these service line replacement programs, right? There's a lot more there than what we might initially think. And as part of that, having the right tools, not only the physical tools for digging the lines, but the digital tools for helping us manage all the data are going to be really important. So that's what I'm going to go over today. It's kind of our digital tool belt. First, though, I want to cover some of the regulations that are necessitating these programs. So as utilities, you're probably all familiar with the LCRR. That was the lead and copper rule revisions. there was a big deadline in October 16th. You all turned in your inventory of service lines to your state primacy agencies. The EPA did not give us a huge break after that. They followed up the LCRR with the LCRI, which is the lead and copper rule improvements, and gave us some new targets to hit. Chiefly among those, and the one we're going to spend the most time talking about today, is the replacement mandate. So the replacement mandate says that all lead and GRR lines must be replaced within 10 years of the LCRI effective date. So that was going to end up being about 2037. So 13 years from now, roughly. However, we can't wait till year 10 of the program to start working on those replacements. There's going to be checkpoints along the way to make sure that we're progressing and making progress. Another big area that's going to impact replacements is public engagement. So, of course, as part of the LCRR, we had public mapping requirements and information sharing requirements. The LCRI builds upon those. One of the big things that we're going to talk about today is outreach to residents about replacement programs. The LCRI says we must reach out to residents at least 4 times about the replacement program prior to marking that resident as non-responsive. So that's going to generate a lot of data for us to track. There's also a few takeaways along the inventorying route. So we are going to have to continue to submit inventories under LCRI. There's also some updates to water quality sampling. Not going to get too much into those 2 areas today. Really going to focus on replacements and the parts of public engagement that affect replacements. So as I mentioned, there's a lot of data generated as part of these lead and copper rule programs. And the data actually comes from several different places, right? So your field data, of course, the contractors out there in the field, they are going to be taking photos, taking measurements, all of these things. That's going to play into your compliance. But also your billing system might have some relevant information, right? Who lives at a certain address? Is that address active or is it a vacant property? That'd be important information to know. Your CMMS and GIS also likely have very relevant information for your lead and copper rule data management. So you can imagine trying to go to all these different point solutions, trying to manage all of that, quite a task in and of itself. So at Trinnex, we developed a tool called LeadCast. LeadCast is a web application that serves as your all-in-one solution for lead and copper rule data management. So we're going to take all that information from the field, from your billing system, from your GIS, package it up, present it to you in a way that allows you to leverage it most effectively for lead and copper rule compliance. What we can do along that way is really everything for the whole spectrum of the solution, but anything from inventorying, field verifications, public engagement. We even have some machine learning capabilities. So if you still have unknown service lines, we can use machine learning to help predict whether those unknowns might be non-lead or lead. What we're really going to focus on today, though, is our replacement aspects. So we have a replacement planning tool and also field tools for replacements. And we understand, at Trinnex that you're going to be communicating out to several different stakeholder groups who have very distinct needs. So we understand you're going to be working with the public, with field users, those contractors actually out doing replacements. And you have people on your team in the back office, right, in the that are interacting with different business systems that might have some relevant needs for the data from LeadCast. So LeadCast works to not only ingest all of that information from your different systems, but then present that in different ways to different stakeholders to make sure that everybody can leverage lead and copper rule data in the way that makes sense for them and is most appropriate for their needs. So one of the first areas I want to cover is our public portal. So Alex talked a lot about communications and being transparent and upfront with residents. And the public portal within Leadcast is one of the building blocks that really helps you build that public trust and communicate with residents. A resident can sign up for a public portal and get a snapshot of their property. So they can see, what kind of service line do I have? Is it non-lead? Is it lead? Is it copper? So on and so forth. And they can also complete some information about their property. So if they have an unknown service line on the private side, they are able to report that service line material to you. So they can go down to their basement, take some photos, mark off if they have copper or lead or any other material, and submit that information to you, the utility, that you can then review and incorporate into your inventory as appropriate. This is something that I really love because of one, it builds some engagement with the residents, right? They're bought into the program. If they're going down to their basement, taking some photos, they're obviously bought in. But it also saves a lot of costs for the utility because now you don't have to send somebody to that location to verify if it's, if it's unknown. You don't have to verify if it's non-lead or lead. You can get that directly from the resident and save some mobilization costs. Additionally, within our public portal, residents can complete right of entry forms. That right of entry form is the legal form where the resident agrees to allow access to their property for a replacement project. So this is, of course, very important. As Alex said, it's important to make sure the resident understands what's going to happen under a replacement. Right of entry is kind of your first step to doing that. You can spell out all of the legal language that they're going to be held to or that they're agreeing to, and then also have some next steps in there that the resident can be aware of. So we collect that on the public portal. I'm going to dive a little bit deeper into right of entries later on, but just want to share that this is one way that you can collect them. Finally, as part of our public engagement, we have a public map. So you all might be familiar with this as part of the LCRR. There was a requirement for systems over 50,000 people to have a public map of their inventory. Within Leadcast, we support that. This map can be embedded on a utility's website, or it can be displayed on its own. And it allows residents to quickly see at a glance information about their home and their neighborhood. So, again, that first building block to building public trust and engagement. Another big area is customer touchpoint tracking. So again, I'm going to reference Alex. He said that you want to really make sure you tell people like 3 times what you're going to be doing and what they can expect. And our customer touchpoint tracking allows you to log those different interactions with residents. So you could log maybe an initial phone call saying you reached out to a resident, told them what to expect in their replacement, and maybe gave them some information. You could log that. And then when you're on site, if you talk to them again, give them some more information, you can again log that touch point and really build this story of all of the different interactions you've had with the residents at this property. This is also really important for compliance because you have to reach out to residents at least 4 times if they're non-responsive before you can remove them from the program. So if I try to get somebody to sign up for a lead replacement program and I just don't hear from them, there's that minimum number of times that I must reach out before I can cease operations on trying to get them to sign up. So this touchpoint tracking allows you to keep tabs on all of that and make sure that you are in compliance. And again, this really helps build public trust because make sure that we're following best practices in our outreach with residents. So revisiting the right of entry form that I hinted at earlier, this is again that legal paper that the resident is going to agree to give access to their property for replacement operations. We, within Leadcast, have multiple methods of collecting right of entry, and that's really important because you need to meet residents kind of where they are in order to maximize response rates. So the first one we got to see a little bit ago, that's in the public portal. In that, the resident can log in, they can review the right of entry form kind of at their leisure, right? They can sit at home while they're sipping on their cup of coffee, scroll through it, read all of that legal language, and decide if they want to agree to it or not. We also have this available on our field forms. So a contractor out in the field that's maybe knocking on doors, trying to generate interest in the program, can present this right of entry directly on an iPad or tablet to the homeowner, and the homeowner can sign it right there. And then we also support uploading physical paper forms as well. So if the utility conducts, a mailer campaign or hands out hard copies, and then the resident mails it back into the utility, we can take that information into Leadcast as well. So by supporting all these different methods, we really can maximize your response rates. And finally, an important thing here is translations. Within Leadcast, we support translating the right of entry to multiple different languages. As you see here, I have Spanish shown. And what this really allows you to do is, again, maximize your response rates, because if you can present that language you can present that legal language in the language that is most comfortable for the resident, you're more likely to get a response. If they feel like they don't understand it, or it's not readable for them, they're probably not going to sign it. So being able to translate to multiple languages is really important to maximize your response. Next, I want to talk about replacements themselves. So it's probably the meat and potatoes of what we're all here for. Within Leadcast, we have this concept called the replacement pool. What the replacement pool is a subset of your inventory that you wish to perform replacements on. The replacement pool allows you to then set up different contracts and assign those contracts to contractors. This way, contractors always know what they're going to be doing every day. They have a clear list, clear depiction of what they're responsible for. And it allows you to manage, very large programs with many contracts efficiently. Within our desktop app and our field app, these contracts are all visible and visualized in different ways. So again, everybody can remain clear and on the same page about what they're responsible for. What you're seeing on the screen here is our replacement inspection forms. So this is how we track work done by the contractors in the field. We have two different forms. There's a pre-replacement form and a post-replacement form. Pre-replacement form documents those existing conditions. So before we do any work, was there already damage to the sidewalk? What did their yard look like? All these sort of things, understanding those existing conditions before we start digging. We're also going to make sure that we confirm the material in that pre-replacement form. So we're going out to this house because we think it's lead. Once we dig it up, let's confirm that it is indeed lead before we start replacing it. We also have a post-replacement form, and that documents the work that the contractor did. So they said that they dug up that lead line and they put in place a nice shiny new copper line. Let's take some photos of that copper line. Let's get the diameter of it. Let's understand everything we can about it, because we have the ground open. Now is the time to document as much as we can, right? So let's get all that information, make sure it makes it into our system, and make sure that it shows compliance with the specifications, right? Alex talked about writing tight specifications in any RFPs, making sure that everybody's on the same page about what's required of them. These pre and post replacement forms really help enforce that, because all the contractors are going to be filling out the same inspections, ask for the same information. So we can make sure that we're kind of standardizing across the program and getting good information across the program. Once those pre and post replacement inspection forms come in from the contractors, there is a pretty robust QA workflow that the utility performs to make sure that everything that's submitted by the contractor meets your specifications. So within Leadcast, you're able to review all the photos, review all of the notes, make sure that you're comfortable with the work that was done. If you are, you can go ahead and approve those inspections. And whenever you do, this is really the magic of having an all-in-one solution like Leadcast. Once you approve that inspection, that information is going to kind of proliferate across the application. So when I change that lead line to copper, I'm now going to be updating my inventory automatically. My public portal is going to be automatically updated. My public map is going to be automatically updated. So I don't have to go to all these different systems and change from lead to copper, right? It does it automatically, keeps everything in sync, keeps everybody on the same page, and really creates a lot of efficiency for the utility because you're not going to all these different solutions to update them. It's all done in one place. If you're not comfortable with the changes, you can reject that inspection and send it back to the contractor for more information. So this is, again, a way to make sure that any changes made in your inventory and in your system are of the utmost quality, because that's really important. So we went through quite a bit today. Some key takeaways to keep in mind. The LCRI, that's the mandating regulatory requirement for lead service line replacement over 10 years. And again, we can't wait till that 10th year of the program to start. We really need to start as soon as possible, start planning right away. Alex talked about all of those kind of questions to ask ourselves to make sure, are we prepared? Now is the time to be doing that. There's going to be checks, regulatory checks along the way to make sure that our replacement rate is meeting expectations. So again, from a regulatory standpoint, you can't wait. As part of these programs, there's going to be a lot of data generated. So just thinking about the customer outreach, there's a lot there that's required. There's also a lot there that's best practice, right? Alex mentioned that kind of reaching out 3 times to the resident to make sure they understand what's going to happen, what's happening, and what happened. That in and of itself, quite a bit of data to manage. But then from a regulatory perspective, we also have to reach out 4 times if we're not hearing back from a resident to make sure that they are being adequately offered replacement for their home. So we have to track all of that, have to manage all of that. It's a lot. Right of entry forms, again, that's going to be quite a bit. There's anytime we're touching the private side, you're probably going to have a right of entry form. So a lot to manage and track there. And then replacement documentation. This is a huge amount of data because again, once you have the ground opened up, like let's collect everything we can. We don't want to miss something and have to come back or miss out on that information. So by collecting more at these replacements, we're able to leverage that going forward. But of course, by collecting more, we are naturally creating more data to manage. So having a solution like Leadcast can really help us do that effectively. And finally, just this data really proliferates across your entire operations, right? We're talking about this in the context of replacements, but it's going to affect your next inventory submission under the LCRI. It affects your public relations, and your support center is going to get calls about these replacement programs. So making sure we have standards in place for how we deal with that. It's going to ripple across your entire organization. So really being on top of it, having all this data managed in a way that everybody can leverage, is going to be super important. And by doing that, we can also allow you, the utility, to kind of focus on the day-to-day operations and the things that you want to focus on instead of being focused on lead and copper compliance, which might be kind of an extra burden on top of your already full plates. So an all-in-one solution like Leadcast can really help alleviate some of that burden. We're going to jump into Q&A here in a second, but I just want to show that there's 2 QR codes up here on the screen. One of them will take you to the Trinnex blog. You can read there a lot of articles about lead and copper rule regulations, as well as about Leadcast. And there's a second QR code where you can learn more directly about Leadcast. So with that, I'll pass it back to Jay to take us through the Q&A.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Aaron. And thank you again, Alex, too. I thought it was really cool to see both the physical best practices and tool belt like you had described, Aaron and Alex, but also then the digital best practices and tool belt that we were able to cover here today. So both really interesting perspectives to share. So we've got a few questions that have come in. Um, Aaron, I think this is a good one for you to kind of kick us off with. This just came in from Daniel. Daniel, thank you for your question. Does Leadcast track just the service lines, or does it also track connectors, aka goosenecks?
Yeah, this is a great question. So let me give some context for I think why this question was asked, and then I'll jump into the answer. So under the lead and copper rule revisions, we had October 16th an inventory that was due. You all hopefully submitted that. That required you to put in information about the private side and the utility side of the service line. The LCRI is going to require a subsequent inventory to be submitted, and that one needs to include the public side and private side information, as well as connector information. So it's a little addition that wasn't quite there in LCRR. And yes, Leadcast does support information about connectors. So you can log within Leadcast the material that a connector is. You can also conduct connector inspections. So we have a field app where your contractors or inspectors out in the field can fill out a form to capture connector information such as its material, its diameter, all that sort of stuff, and then that can be reviewed as well by the utility. So that goes through that same QA/QC workflow.
Fantastic. Thank you, Aaron, and thank you again for your question. Alex, I think this would be a good one for you. I know it looks like you maybe responded directly, but maybe we can cover it too with the group in case other people were thinking the same thing. This came from Tori. Thank you for your question, Tori. What is the percentage per year of replacement requirement? Is it 10%? Do you want to share your perspective on that, Alex?
Yeah, it's 10%. There's obviously variables. They could be a deferred replacement plan. There could be different things that the EPA can consider. But I wouldn't go off the base 10%. You never want to be behind the A game on this. You want to be ahead. So my personal feel is minimum 20% because you might get 15 to 10. So I would say I would hold yourself at a 20% window versus a 10% window.
Cool. Anything else you'd want to add there, Aaron?
I think it's a great answer, and yeah, that's why I said a couple of times throughout, but we can't wait until year 9 of this program to start doing replacements. We really need to start doing the planning now so we can execute starting in 2027 or before.
Great. Well said. Alex, here's another good one for you. What are some of the current challenges contractors are facing regarding labor availability and costs?
Yeah, so obviously costs are still up, materials still up. Availability of actual workers is pretty tough lately. I have tons of contractors that have ads out that just really can't get skilled labor anymore. The field is pretty much dying out. Like I said, the average license holder is 55 in the US. So a lot of the younger generations are really not coming into the trades, and it's kind of a little scary. So I always tell contractors to reach out to technical high schools because that they have programs where kids that really want to get into the trades, that's where they mostly go. Reach out to high schools, technical colleges, expand your broad areas of where you want to get your pool from. You just can't go online and hopefully somebody applies to your location. Go to supply houses. There might be guys there that are working by themselves and are just tired of chasing the coin every day that really want to work for someone. So there's various places that you can really develop your workforce. So you just got to be very broad about it and think outside the box sometimes.
Great. Well said, Alex, and thank you for the answer. I think being able to attract and retain that next generation of the workforce is something we really focus on here at Trinnex too, and how those digital tools can help with that and also help retain some of that institutional knowledge as the workforce changes. So really appreciate your perspective on that. Thank you, Alex, and thank you in the audience for the question. Aaron, here's a good one for you. This came through. We are conducting a canvassing campaign to get residents signed up for replacements. Is that something Leadcast can track?
Yeah,
can track.
Absolutely. So I showed our touch point tracking on one of my slides. that is available in both our desktop application and the field application. So the desktop application, where I typically see touchpoint tracking used within that context, is support centers and hotlines. So if you have kind of a dedicated lead phone number that customers can call, you know, that support center operative is often logging that within the desktop app. If you have somebody going door to door as part of a canvassing operation, that's where our field app really comes into play. And they can log those door to door visits directly in the field app. That's going to be visible to everybody in your organization. So it's visible, you know, in the field app and in the desktop application to really make sure everybody's on the same page about all of the touch points with these different residents.
Great. Good answer, Aaron. Thank you so much. Okay, just for time, I think I'll ask one more question to each of you, and then we can wrap the session today. So this one's for you, Alex. What's the best lesson you've learned in your experience? You shared a lot of great stories from the field, but what's your top lesson you'd share?
My biggest lesson is you got to be in the field with the contractors. You're not going to be on every job, but you have to have somebody visibly on the job to make sure that things are going smoothly. You can't manage a contractor just by a database. Sometimes you physically need to be out there to see what's going on, whether the work site is safe, whether the individuals are wearing a proper safety items, talking to the customer, seeing if they're actually speaking to the customer, like I said, those 3 times, you know, during, before, and after. So those are key items that you're not going to always see in a survey or a database. So my biggest takeaway is you got to spend some time in the field to really understand your contractors and also your customers. What type of customers you're dealing with.
That's great. Yeah, well said. Aaron, same question to you, I guess. On the digital side, just to wrap us up here, what's kind of your key lesson or takeaway that you have for the audience today?
Yeah, I think you know, probably the biggest thing is the lead and copper rule. When talking about LCRR or LCRI, it's very broad, right? It's going to it goes from everything from material identification all the way through replacements, communications with residents, publishing stuff online. It's a huge breadth. So having an all-in-one solution, something like Leadcast, I think that really simplifies things quite a bit. Because otherwise, you're going to be interacting with so many different systems, and it's easy to get out of sync. It's easy to lose data if you're trying to work between 5, 10 different systems. So having something that compiles it all into one place and is able to manipulate and operate from one source of truth really will simplify your operations, give a lot of time back to the utility so you can spend it on other areas of your utility, and make things much more efficient. And I think everybody's happier at the end of the day.
Well said. Thank you so much, Aaron. And thank you to our audience today for joining us. I think we're right at time. So we appreciate your time and sharing your attention with us for today's session. Massive thank you to our speakers, Alex from HomeServe. You can find him on LinkedIn. Alex, thank you so much for joining us today and sharing your stories from the field. And of course, Aaron, thank you for joining us as always. So have a good rest of your day, everybody. And thanks again for joining us.
Thank you.